I still remember that morning, the weak Seattle sunlight filtering through the high-rise windows of Westbrook Innovations, casting a glow on the polished ebony table in Adam Westbrook's office. I, Ashton Reed, 37 years old, stood before the heavy wooden door, its cold handle chilling my palm. Adam, my father-in-law and chairman of the company, had summoned me. No reason, no message, just a curt note from his secretary. "Mr. Westbrook wants to see you now." I pushed the door open, the scent of pine and coffee mingling in the air. Adam sat behind his desk, his face as cold as ice, his sharp eyes hidden behind gold-rimmed glasses. I forced a smile, trying to appear natural, though an uneasy feeling stirred within me. "Hello, Dad," I said softly, the way I'd addressed him for the past 15 years. He didn't respond, only gestured for me to sit. On the desk, a single sheet of paper lay neatly, his looping signature at the bottom. I glanced at it and my heart froze. Termination notice. My name, Ashton Reed, was printed boldly at the top. "What is this, Dad?" My voice came out hoarse, not from anger, but from the shock of not yet grasping what was happening. Adam slid the paper toward me, his gaze unwavering. "Read it," he said, his voice low and cutting. "As of today, you are no longer the Chief Operating Officer of Westbrook Innovations." I sat there, my fingers trembling as they brushed the paper, as if touching it would shatter everything. No explanation, no questions, not even a kind glance. I wanted to ask why, to shout that I had devoted 15 years to this company, pouring my sweat and heart into transforming it from a small startup into one of the top 10 technology firms in the industry. But I couldn't speak. My throat tightened, as if someone were choking it. "You can clear out your office today," Adam continued, his voice flat as if reading a financial report. "I've already arranged for your replacement." "Replacement?" I almost laughed, not out of amusement, but at the absurdity of the situation. I was the one who had built the production systems from scratch, stayed up countless nights to complete major projects, and stepped in to handle every crisis Adam didn't want to touch. And now he spoke of me as if I were just a number on the payroll, easily erased. I walked into my office where I had worked for 15 years. The spacious room with its window overlooking Seattle's skyline was once a place where I stood proudly, believing I had built a dream-worthy life. I began packing my belongings. The family photos, the notebook I'd used since my days as an engineer, a few framed awards on the wall. Each item I touched felt like a knife, reminding me of what I'd lost. I stood unsure of what I said before leaving the room. Maybe a meaningless "I understand," or just a silent nod. As the door closed behind me, I stood in the long hallway, the sound of my leather shoes echoing sharply on the marble floor. It felt as if the world had collapsed beneath my feet. Just weeks earlier, Celia, my wife, had placed divorce papers in front of me. Now my job, the last thing I clung to, was stripped away. I hadn't just lost my family, my wife, my faith, my very sense of self seemed to be dissolving. Only months ago, my life was a dream. I lived in a modern villa on Queen Anne Hill, where every morning sunlight streamed through large windows, illuminating the polished wooden floors and the carefully chosen artwork Celia had hung on the walls. We had 2 children, Emma, 8, and Liam, 5, little angels whose smiles melted my heart daily. I was Ashton Reed, Chief Operating Officer of Westbrook Innovations, the man the press called the silent pillar of the Westbrook tech empire. Celia, my wife, 34, was the brand image director, a brilliant and sharp woman who always left people in awe of her beauty and talent. We were Seattle's golden couple. The press loved writing about us, the talented daughter of the Westbrook family and the man who helped build a tech empire. I used to read those articles, smile, and think how lucky I was. I had a job I loved, a family I cherished, and a life I believed was unshakable. I always thought that as long as I worked hard, stayed honest, and put my family first, things would stay that way. But I was wrong. Sitting in my office for the last time, I gazed out the window where Seattle buzzed on, oblivious to the storm raging within me. I picked up the photo frame on my desk. a picture of our family beaming in Hawaii. Tears welled up, but I didn't wipe them away. I sank onto the sofa, my mind drifting back 15 years to when I first stepped into the glittering world of the Westbrooks. It was a world I, a young engineer from an ordinary family, had never dared dream of. But I had made it, or so I thought. I remembered the day I met Celia at a tech conference in Seattle. She walked into the room in an emerald green dress, her blonde hair shimmering under the lights. She spoke about branding strategy with a confidence that silenced the entire room. I, a 22-year-old fresh graduate, sat there, admiring her from afar. When she smiled and shook my hand after her presentation, I knew my heart belonged to her. We fell in love quickly, as if it were fate. Celia was gentle, brilliant, and had a way of making me feel like the most important person in the world. When I proposed, she said yes, but not before Adam Westbrook, her father, summoned me to his office. "You want to marry my daughter?" he asked, his voice like a judge's. I nodded, full of hope. He slid a thick stack of papers toward me, a prenuptial agreement. "Sign it," he said. "It's to protect Celia, and you." I didn't read it closely, only skimming the dry legal text. I trusted him, trusted Celia, trusted our love. I signed without hesitation. Now I realized that was my first mistake. 15 years as a Westbrook son-in-law were 15 years of living in a false glow. I worked tirelessly, slaving day and night just to prove I was worthy. When I joined Westbrook Innovations, the company was grappling with a financial crisis. Major projects were failing, stocks were plummeting, and investors were turning away. As the chief engineer at the time, I threw myself into the work like a madman. I stayed up all night analyzing data, fixing production systems, and persuading partners to return. In 3 years, I pulled the company through the crisis, transforming it into one of the top 10 tech firms in the industry. The press called me the unsung hero, but to Adam, I was always the outsider. He never let me forget it. In board meetings, when I presented plans, he'd interrupt with a cutting remark. "Ashton, don't forget who you are." Those words were like a slap, a reminder that no matter how much I contributed, I was merely the son-in-law, allowed to stand in the Westbrook spotlight. I swallowed my pride and kept working, believing that effort would earn me recognition. I believed Celia, the wife I loved, would always stand by me. But Celia had changed. I noticed it months ago when family dinners became a thing of the past. She started coming home late, always with the excuse of work. I remember one evening waiting for her in the living room while Emma and Liam slept soundly upstairs. The door opened and Celia walked in, her hair slightly mussed, a strange perfume lingering around her. "The meeting ran late," she said, avoiding my eyes. Her phone lit up constantly with messages arriving at midnight. I asked gently, "Are you okay? Is there anything you want to share?" She gave a faint smile, shook her head, and went straight upstairs. I tried to dismiss my doubts. I told myself it was just work pressure. Celia was the brand image director. She attended countless events and met dozens of people. I didn't want to be a controlling husband, didn't want to ruin her freedom. I kept taking care of Emma and Liam, maintaining our routine. Every morning I drove them to school, listening to Emma talk about her math test or Liam excitedly showing off his superhero drawing. Those moments were the only balm keeping my heart at peace. But that peace was as fragile as morning mist. One morning, flipping through the local business paper, I saw a photo that stopped my heart. Celia in a striking red dress, arm in arm with Roman Blake, a young company partner. They were smiling, their gazes intimate in a way that broke my heart. Rumors spread quickly in Seattle's tech circle. Colleagues started looking at me with pity. It's probably just a misunderstanding, I told myself, though my heart was cracking. I couldn't take it anymore. I rushed to Adam's office, my heart heavy but still clinging to hope that he'd say something to ease my pain. I knocked, stepped inside, and froze. Celia was there, sitting next to Roman Blake. They were laughing as if I didn't exist. Adam looked at me, his eyes cold as ice. "Ashton, you're just in time," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. I'm discussing the company's future with Roman. The future, I repeated, my voice trembling. What about me? What did I do wrong? I looked at Celia, hoping for a trace of remorse, a flicker of the love we once had. But she only lowered her head, avoiding my gaze. Roman, with a smug smile, placed a hand on her shoulder as if claiming ownership. Adam stood and approached me. Celia deserves a man of her stature, he said, each word a dagger to my chest. You did well, Ashton, but you never truly belonged here. I wanted to scream, to smash the ebony desk in front of me, to demand why they treated me this way. But I couldn't. I just stood there, feeling small, invisible, like a stranger in my own life. A few days later, Celia came home. No more avoidance, no more pretense. She placed divorce papers on the dining table, her eyes cold and unwavering. Sign them, she said. I'm tired, Ashton. I can't keep living with someone. Not on my level. Not on my level. The words echoed in my mind, a final verdict. For 15 years I had lived for her, for our children, for the Westbrook name I once took pride in. I had poured my sweat, tears, and heart into this company, this family. But to her, to Adam, I was just a lesser man, unworthy. I picked up the pen, signing the papers with a trembling hand, my signature a jagged scrawl. The prenuptial agreement Adam had forced me to sign 15 years ago flashed vividly in my mind. I would lose everything, my assets, custody of the children, my honor. I looked at Celia, hoping for one last moment, an apology, a hint of remorse. But she only turned away, taking Emma and Liam with her, leaving me in an empty house. The 15 years with the Westbrook family ended in silence. I stood, grabbed my car keys, and decided to leave this place. Seattle, with its towering skyscrapers and dazzling lights, now only suffocated me. I needed a place to breathe, a place to rediscover myself. And then the image of the old wooden house back home, where my parents still lived, flashed in my mind. That was where I grew up, where my grandfather once held my hand, teaching me how to wield a hoe, plant trees, and keep my word with my heart. Even if you lose everything, you still have family, he used to say. His voice warm like a fire on cold winter days. Just come back, and home will welcome you. Those words, after all these years, remained a flickering light in my mind. I believed that even if the world turned its back on me, my parents would open their arms, as my grandfather had promised. I tossed my suitcase into the trunk, started the old Ford, and drove out of the city. Rain fell, each drop hitting the windshield like a reminder of unhealed wounds. The highway to my hometown stretched long and empty, with only the crackling radio playing an old country song. I turned it off, letting my mind drift to the past, to the days when I was a barefoot boy running through fields, listening to my grandfather's stories. My grandfather was a stern, disciplined man with calloused hands and eyes that always looked straight ahead. He didn't speak much, but every word he uttered was etched into my heart. Work with your hands, Ashton, he said, teaching me how to fix a wooden fence. And keep your word with your heart. That's how a man stands tall. I remembered summer afternoons when he sat in his old armchair, recounting the tough days when he built the farm from nothing. Life will knock you down, but family is where you get back up, he said. And I, a 10-year-old kid, nodded as if I understood it all. When he passed away, I was 18. He left me a small inheritance, a plot of land and some savings. I wanted to keep it, to build something of my own, but my parents had other plans. Share it with the family, Ashton, my father said, his voice leaving no room for argument. It's your duty. I complied, giving nearly all of it to my parents, keeping only a small portion in an account I never touched. Back then, I thought it was the right thing to do. I thought family was where I could place my full trust. Now, as the car rolled past golden cornfields, those memories returned, both warm and bitter. I wondered if my parents remembered those days when I did everything to make them proud. I had left home, gone to college, built a career, married Celia, the woman I thought would be my entire world. I had tried to be the son they wanted, but now, with everything in ruins, I only hoped they would see me as their son, not a failure. The wooden house appeared at the end of the dirt road, as weathered as in my memories with its mossy shingles and crooked fence. I stopped the car, took a deep breath, and felt like I was a child again. I stepped out, my leather shoes sinking into the muddy ground. I knocked on the door, my heart pounding, clinging to the belief that this door would open to a final refuge. My mother opened the door, her eyes widening in surprise before quickly turning guarded. "Ashton?" she said, her voice lacking warmth. I smiled, trying to hide the pain rising within me. "I came to visit," I said, my voice hoarse. I need a place to rest." She led me inside, but there was no embrace, no questions. My father sat at the kitchen table reading a newspaper and looked up at me. "Back, huh?" he said, his tone flat as if I were just a passerby. I sat down, searching for words to start. "I've been through a tough time," I said, meeting my father's eyes, hoping for a trace of empathy. "Celia, she divorced me. And the company. I was fired." The air in the room grew heavy. My father folded the newspaper, his gaze cold. "I told you, Ashton," he began, his voice thick with reproach. "I warned you when you married that rich girl that you didn't belong in her world. And now? Wife gone, job lost, you brought shame to this family in front of the whole town." My blood felt like it froze. "Shame?" I repeated, my voice trembling. "Dad, I did everything to make this family proud. I worked, I sacrificed, I gave you and Mom nearly all of Grandpa's inheritance. I just hoped—" I stopped, my throat tightening. I wanted to say I only hoped they'd hug me, tell me everything would be okay like my grandfather used to, but I couldn't. I looked at my father, hoping for a word of comfort, but he waved his hand dismissively. "That inheritance from your grandfather should have been mine. He was foolish to leave it to you, so giving it to us was your duty. Don't bring it up like we owe you, Ashton." I sat there, stunned, feeling as if my heart were being crushed. I had driven for hours, carrying the belief that family would be the last to open their arms to me. But instead of an embrace, I got cold stares and accusations. Even my own flesh and blood saw me only through the lens of status, of what I once had and now lost. I stood, saying nothing more. "I'm leaving," I said, my voice strangely calm. My father didn't stop me, and my mother only nodded, her eyes still avoiding mine. I walked out of the house. The rain had stopped, but the air remained heavy, pressing on my chest. I got into the car, glancing back at the wooden house one last time. The image of my grandfather in his armchair smiling at me flashed vividly. "Just come back, and home will welcome you," he had said. But he was wrong. There was no home waiting for me, no arms open wide. On the drive back to Seattle, I pulled over at an old gas station, its flickering neon lights glowing in the dusk. I opened the trunk, retrieved my suitcase, and beneath a layer of clothes, I found an old leather-bound notebook. It was my grandfather's, the only thing I had taken from the house I'd just left. I opened it, my fingers tracing his handwritten words. "Whatever you do, stay rooted." Those words, which had been a guiding light in my darkest days, now became a flame to lead my way. I closed the notebook, took a deep breath, and thought of a secret no one, not Celia, not Adam, not even my parents, knew about. Blue Peak Systems, the company I had quietly built over the past 10 years. 10 years ago, when I was still a young engineer at Westbrook Innovations, I embarked on a journey without knowing where it would lead. After giving nearly all of my grandfather's inheritance to my parents, I kept a small portion. Not enough to buy a house, but enough to take a risk. I rented an old garage on the outskirts of Seattle where the smell of motor oil and rotting wood mingled, and started a company called Blue Peak Systems. It was just me, an old laptop, and a dream with no clear shape. The early years were suffocatingly lonely. No one believed in an unknown engineer with an idea for internal management software for small and medium-sized businesses. I sent emails, made calls, attended conferences to pitch to investors. But each time I was met with a shake of the head or polite rejections. Good idea, but not feasible, they'd say. Or worse, who are you to think you can compete with the giants? I was turned down more than 20 times, each rejection a blow to my confidence. Some nights I sat in the garage staring at the blurry laptop screen, wondering if I was chasing a foolish dream. But whenever I wanted to give up, I opened my grandfather's notebook, a reminder that I couldn't surrender. My roots weren't in fame or wealth, but in perseverance, in the belief that I could create something with my own hands. 2 years later, I signed my first contract with a small company in Portland. They needed warehouse management software, and Blue Peak delivered. The contract was worth less than $10,000, but to me it was the world. It was proof that I wasn't crazy, that my dream was real. From that first contract, Blue Peak Systems began to gain attention. Our software, with its simple yet effective interface, helped small and medium-sized businesses manage operations smoothly. Clients started coming to us, from family-owned shops to companies with dozens of employees. After 10 years, Blue Peak Systems had its own headquarters in an industrial park outside Seattle, with over 80 employees and a valuation exceeding $50 million. We provided solutions to hundreds of companies across the U.S., from California to New York. No one at Westbrook Innovations, not Celia, not Adam, knew of Blue Peak's existence. I ran the company remotely, through emails and late-night calls, while still fulfilling my role as COO at Westbrook. I didn't want to brag or let anyone know. To me, Blue Peak wasn't just a company. It was proof that I didn't need the Westbrook name to stand tall. I had achieved everything I once dreamed of: a successful company, respect in the industry, financial stability. But as I looked out the window, watching Seattle's rain fall quietly, I realized a bitter truth. Success no longer brought me joy. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and a thought came to me, clear as sunlight breaking through clouds. I didn't want to continue this cycle anymore. The endless meetings, the pressure of prestige, the judgmental stares. I wanted freedom, a life no one could control or take away. I wanted to rediscover Ashton Reed, not the COO, not the Westbrook son-in-law, but the real me, with simple dreams and a heart full of fire. I opened my phone and found Elena Brooks' number, the investment lawyer who had been with me since Blue Peak's earliest days. Elena was a sharp woman with short brown hair and eyes that saw through everything. She wasn't just my lawyer, she was a rare friend who understood me better than anyone. I called her, and after one ring, her warm yet resolute voice answered. "Ashton, you rarely call at this hour." "What's up?" I smiled, though she couldn't see it. "Elena, I need to meet you. I want to sell Blue Peak." There was a brief silence, then she replied, calm but concerned. "All right, meet me at my office this afternoon. We'll talk it through." That afternoon, I stepped into Elena's office. A small but tidy space with bookshelves full of legal documents and a framed photo of her family on the desk. She sat there in a gray suit, looking at me with a mix of curiosity and understanding. "Tell me, Ashton," she said, setting down her coffee. "Why now?" "Blue Peak is at its peak. You could take it international." I sat down, gazing out at Seattle's bustling streets. "I'm tired, Elena," I admitted, my voice hoarse. "I built Blue Peak to prove I didn't need the Westbrooks, that I could stand on my own. But looking back, I realize I've sacrificed too much. I don't want to live to prove myself anymore. I want to live for me." Elena didn't interrupt, just listened, her eyes gentle but not pitying. As I spoke of Celia, Adam, my parents, and the lonely nights in the garage, she nodded slightly as if she already knew it all. "So what do you want now?" she asked. "I want to sell Blue Peak," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "I want to leave, find a place where no one knows me, where no one judges me. I want a simple life, free of pressure and prestige." Elena smiled, a rare, genuine smile. "All right," she said. "I'll help you. But Ashton, are you sure? Blue Peak is your life's work. You won't regret selling it?" I looked at her, and for a moment I saw myself 10 years ago, sitting in that garage with my grandfather's notebook by my side. "I won't regret it," I replied. Blue Peak gave me what I needed. Belief in myself. Now I want to use it to find myself again. With Elena's help, I began the process of selling Blue Peak systems. She worked tirelessly, contacting international investment funds, negotiating every term with the precision of someone who understood the value of my effort. I wanted it done quietly, ensuring no one, especially the Westbrooks, knew. Elena understood. She kept every transaction confidential, updating me only through encrypted emails. 3 months later, the deal was finalized. An international investment fund agreed to buy all of Blue Peak's shares for $69 million. As I signed the final contract in Elena's small office, I didn't feel lost, but a strange sense of relief. Blue Peak had fulfilled its purpose. It had saved me in my darkest days, and now it was giving me a new beginning. I left Seattle soon after, saying goodbye to no one. I bought a small house in a coastal town in Oregon where the sound of waves lapping and the salty sea air soothed my soul. The house had 1 bedroom, a small kitchen, and a wooden porch overlooking the ocean. I brought little with me, just a few clothes, my grandfather's notebook, and an old coffee maker. Each morning I read on the porch, listening to the waves. Each evening I brewed coffee, watched the fiery sunset, and for the first time in years I felt truly free. Elena visited occasionally, bringing legal documents and small stories about the investment world. She'd drive from Portland, stopping in front of my house, always with a slight smile and a coffee in hand. We didn't talk much, but there was a rare respect and peace between us. Once, as we sat on the porch looking out at the sea, she asked, "Ashton, do you miss Seattle?" I shook my head, sipping my coffee. "No," I said. "Seattle is the past. Here, I don't have to be anyone. I just have to be me." Elena nodded, saying nothing more. She understood, as she always did. The days in the coastal town passed quietly. No more stressful meetings, no more judgmental stares. I read books, walked along the sandy shore, and wrote in my grandfather's notebook. Not business plans, but thoughts about life, about what truly matters. I thought of Emma and Liam, their smiles, and my heart ached, but I knew one day I would find a way to bring them back to me. For now, I needed time to heal, to mend a broken heart. One early autumn morning, as I sat by the window flipping through the local paper, a headline jolted my heart. Westbrook Innovations on the brink of bankruptcy. I set my coffee down, reading each line, each word as if watching a film of my own life. The article described the company's rapid collapse after Adam Westbrook appointed Roman Blake, Celia's lover, my ex-wife, as acting CEO. Stocks plummeted uncontrollably, major projects lost millions, and the largest investment funds pulled out, leaving the company in a financial storm. The press was merciless, calling it the Westbrook family's mistake of the century, lambasting Adam and Roman's arrogance and mismanagement. I read to the last line but felt no satisfaction. A part of me perhaps had once wanted this day, the day Adam and Celia paid for their betrayal, for stealing 15 years of my dedication. But instead of joy, I felt only a quiet bitterness. Westbrook Innovations was where I had poured my sweat, tears, and heart. I had stayed up countless nights fixing systems, stepping in to save projects when no one else would. That company had been my pride, but now it was crumbling due to the arrogance of those I once called family. A few days later, my phone buzzed. Elena Brooks sent a message. "Ashton, I just received an internal report on Westbrook Innovations. You should take a look. Big opportunity here." Attached was a PDF, a detailed report from the investment community. I opened it, scanning the numbers and charts. Major Westbrook shareholders were panic-selling their stakes, terrified of impending bankruptcy. The stock price had hit rock bottom and the market was in chaos. Elena's note at the end read, "If you want to act, now's the time. I can help." I called her back. "I want to buy Westbrook shares, but I want to stay anonymous." "Can you make that happen?" I asked, my voice calm but resolute. She chuckled softly over the phone, a sound both confident and playful. "Ashton, I've been waiting for you to ask that. I'll set up an anonymous investment fund. No one will know it's you. But are you sure? This isn't just about money. It's stepping back into the world you left behind. I gazed at the ocean horizon, speaking slowly. I'm sure, I replied. Not for revenge, Elena. To take back what they stole from me. Under Elena's orchestration, the plan began. She established an anonymous investment fund under a shell company in Delaware, leaving no trace back to me. Every transaction was legal, deliberate, and precise. Elena contacted panicking shareholders, offering to buy their shares at below-market prices but enticing enough to secure their agreement. I sat in my small coastal house, tracking each step through Elena's encrypted emails. No one suspected that Ashton Reed, the son-in-law the Westbrooks had cast aside without mercy, was behind it. 3 months passed in a blur. Elena called one afternoon, her voice excited yet professional. Ashton, we did it, she said. You now hold 51% of Westbrook Innovations shares. You're the controlling shareholder. I sat on the wooden porch, phone still pressed to my ear, feeling as if a weight had been lifted from my chest. I said nothing, listening to the waves crash in Elena's voice. What's next? She asked. I looked at the sea, the sunset blazing red across the horizon. I want to wait, I replied. Wait for the right moment to show up. This wasn't about revenge. I reminded myself again. It was about proving that I, Ashton Reed, was more than the son-in-law they had scorned. I was the one who helped build Westbrook Innovations, and now I would decide its fate. The days that followed were a strange mix of peace and tension. I knew the time to return was nearing, but I wasn't in a rush. I wanted them to feel the collapse, to understand the cost of their arrogance. I walked along the beach carrying my grandfather's notebook, jotting down thoughts about the plan ahead. I didn't want to destroy Westbrook Innovations. That wasn't me. I wanted to restore it, not for Adam or Celia, but for myself, for the years I had poured into it. Elena sent weekly reports updating me on Westbrook's chaos. Roman Blake was savaged by the press, dubbed the Wrecker and disastrous lover. Adam tried to reassure shareholders, but his credibility was gone. I read those articles, and each time I saw myself in Adam's office when he slid the termination notice toward me. You don't belong here, he had said. Now I held the power to decide, and I would show him how wrong he was. One morning, Elena called again. They've just called an emergency shareholders meeting, she said. Westbrook is on the edge. If you want to come back, now's the time. I nodded, though she couldn't see. Get everything ready, Elena, I said. I'm coming to Seattle. I closed my laptop, stood and took one last look at the sea. I knew I was about to enter a battle, not with fists, but with truth and honor. I wasn't afraid. I was ready. Standing before the towering Westbrook Innovations building in downtown Seattle, I felt my heart pound, not from anxiety, but from an indescribable thrill. 10 years of building Blue Peak systems in the shadows, 3 months of quietly acquiring Westbrook shares, and now I stood here, not as Ashton Reed, the son-in-law cast out by the Westbrooks without mercy, but as Ashton Reed, the controlling shareholder, the one who held the power to decide the fate of the empire that once trampled me. I took a deep breath, lifted my head to the glistening glass windows catching Seattle's rare sunlight. Today, I would walk into that boardroom, not for revenge, but to reclaim the honor and effort they stole from me. Elena Brooks stood beside me, elegant in a gray suit, her sharp eyes betraying a faint smile. Ready, Ashton? She asked, holding a briefcase containing the legal documents we'd prepared over the past 3 months. I nodded, my voice firm. Let's go. We entered the building, crossing the grand lobby with its cold marble floors where I had once walked daily as COO. Today I returned in a different role, and no one, not Adam, not Celia, not Roman Blake, expected my arrival. The emergency shareholders meeting was held in Westbrook Innovations' largest conference room, a space that had witnessed the company's triumphs and failures. The atmosphere was heavy as lead. Shareholders sat around the long table, their faces tense, whispering about the company's dire state. A large screen displayed the grim financial report. Stocks in free fall, losses in the tens of millions, major projects canceled, and top investment funds withdrawn. Adam Westbrook, the chairman, stood before the board, trying to reassure them with a deep but trembling voice. "Ladies and gentlemen," Adam began, his gaze sweeping the room. "Westbrook Innovations is facing challenges, but I assure you we will overcome them. I have a restructuring plan, and with the leadership of our new CEO, Roman Blake, we will—" He paused as a shareholder raised a hand to interrupt. "Mr. Westbrook," a middle-aged man in a gray suit said, his voice laced with doubt, "the stock has lost 70% of its value in 6 months. Roman Blake has no experience running a corporation of this size. Why did you place your trust in him?" The room buzzed with murmurs. Adam tried to maintain his composure, but from the hallway, through the glass door, I could see sweat beading on his forehead. He glanced at Celia, who sat at the corner of the table in a deep red dress, her eyes lowered, avoiding the room. Beside her was Roman Blake, wearing his familiar smug smile, as if oblivious to the company crumbling under his leadership. I clenched my fists, feeling a mix of exhilaration and tension. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. Elena touched my shoulder lightly. "It's time," she whispered. I nodded and pushed the door open. The room fell silent, stunned. The murmurs ceased as if the air had been sucked out. Adam mid-sentence froze, his eyes widening as if he'd seen a ghost. Celia looked up, her face paling, her lips pressed tightly together. Roman Blake frowned, clearly confused by what was happening. I walked to the center of the room in a simple black suit, my gaze calm but piercing. I said nothing at first, letting the silence stretch, letting them feel the weight of my presence. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, my voice low but clear, resonating in the quiet room. "I am Ashton Reed, representing the investment fund holding the controlling shares of Westbrook Innovations." I paused, looking directly at Adam, then at Celia. "I'm here to discuss the company's future." Adam shot to his feet, his face flushed red, his voice trembling with rage. "What are you doing here, Ashton?" he shouted. "You were fired. You have no right to be in this room." Celia gripped her hands tightly, her eyes flickering between shock and panic. Roman Blake smirked, but I saw the unease in his gaze. Elena stepped forward, placing her briefcase on the table, her voice sharp as a blade. "Mr. Westbrook, I am Elena Brooks, legal counsel for Mr. Reed's investment fund. We have full legal authority to attend this meeting." She opened the briefcase, pulling out a thick stack of documents and sliding them toward the board. These papers prove that Mr. Reed currently holds 51% of Westbrook Innovations shares, making him the controlling shareholder. The room erupted in murmurs. Shareholders flipped through the documents, their expressions shifting from skepticism to astonishment. Adam staggered, clutching the table for balance. "Impossible," he muttered. You couldn't have done this." Celia stared at me, her eyes a mix of fear and regret, but she remained silent like a statue. Elena continued, her voice calm but commanding. "Based on his controlling shareholder status, Mr. Reed proposes an immediate vote to remove Mr. Adam Westbrook as chairman and terminate Mr. Roman Blake as CEO." Adam slammed his fist on the table, his face purple with fury. "This is my company," he roared. "You, an outsider, think you can take it from me." I met his gaze, unflinching. "You once said I didn't belong here," I replied, my voice cold. "But I helped build this company, Adam. I gave it 15 years and you threw me out like I was worthless. Today, I'm not here to steal. I'm here to take back what's mine." The vote happened quickly. The shareholders, exhausted by Adam and Roman's failures, didn't hesitate to raise their hands in favor. Elena stood by, noting each vote, her face calm, but her eyes glinting with pride. When the results were announced, Adam removed, Roman fired, the room fell into a stunned silence. Adam lowered his head, his hands trembling, then quietly left the room without looking back. Roman stood, shooting me a venomous glare, but said nothing. He walked out, dragging the shadow of his failure behind him. Celia remained, her eyes fixed on me, but she didn't speak. I looked at her, the woman I had once loved more than myself, who had called me beneath her level. In that moment, I felt no anger, only a quiet sadness. She had chosen her path, and now she faced the consequences. I stepped to the podium facing the board. "I'm not here to destroy Westbrook Innovations," I said, my voice steady but resolute. "I'm here to restore it with true values and transparency. This company was once my pride, and I'll do everything to bring it back." The shareholders nodded, some clapping. Elena stood beside me, her eyes shining with respect. As the meeting ended, she patted my shoulder. "You did it, Ashton," she said. "You reclaimed your honor." I walked out of the boardroom feeling as if a boulder had been lifted from my chest. I didn't gloat or seek revenge. I only felt relief, as if, after 15 years of being trampled, I had finally stood tall. I looked out the window at Seattle's bustling streets, and for the first time I saw the sunlight radiant. I was Ashton Reed, and I had returned. Standing in my new office at Westbrook Innovations, gazing at Seattle's skyline shimmering under rare sunlight, I felt a rare sense of relief. I, once cast out as worthless by them, was now the controlling shareholder, the new chairman of the company I had poured 15 years of my heart into building. But the joy didn't come from power or prestige. It came from reclaiming my honor, from proving I didn't need them to stand tall. I began working not to boast, but to restore Westbrook Innovations. I met with the team, analyzed projects, and cut the reckless spending Roman had left behind. Shareholders looked at me with new eyes, no longer the son-in-law they once dismissed, but a leader who could save the company from the brink. Deep down, though, I knew I didn't want to stay here forever. Seattle, with all its glamour and painful memories, was no longer where I belonged. I longed to return to my coastal Oregon home, where the crashing waves and salty air helped me rediscover myself. A few weeks after the meeting, on a lightly rainy afternoon, my office door swung open. I looked up from a stack of financial reports, and my heart stopped. Celia stood there in a long gray coat, her blonde hair damp from the rain. Beside her were Emma and Liam, my children, the little angels I hadn't seen since she took them away. Emma, 8, gazed at me with wide eyes, while Liam, 5, clung to her leg, hugging a teddy bear tightly. I stood, trying to keep my voice steady, though a storm of emotions raged inside me. "Ashton," Celia said, her voice soft but trembling, "I need to talk to you." She stepped in, guiding Emma and Liam to the sofa. I looked at them, my heart aching at Emma's sparkling eyes and Liam's shy smile. I wanted to rush over, pull them into my arms, but I held back, waiting to see what Celia wanted. She sat, her hands clasped tightly, her eyes wavering as if searching for words. "I know things have gone too far," she began, her voice trying to sound gentle. "But for Emma and Liam, I think we could start over. For the kids, Ashton. They need both a mother and a father." I looked at her, and for a moment I saw the Celia from 10 years ago, the gentle woman who held me every night, who laughed brightly when we took Emma to the park. But then I looked into her eyes and I saw the calculation. She wasn't here because she loved me or regretted her actions. She came because the Westbrook Empire had collapsed, because Adam had lost his power, because Roman had fled amid fraud allegations. She came because I, Ashton Reed, now controlled Westbrook Innovations, and she wanted a way out. I sat across from her, my voice calm. "Celia," I said, "you say it's for the kids, but we both know the real reason. You chose your path when you placed those divorce papers on the table, when you said I wasn't on your level. The past is done. I'll fulfill my responsibilities to Emma and Liam, but our marriage is over for good." Celia pressed her lips together, her eyes glistening with what looked like tears. But I knew they weren't born of remorse. She stood, taking Emma and Liam's hands. "You really won't think of the kids?" she asked, her voice sharper, as if trying to stir guilt in me. I looked at Emma, her eyes seeming to ask why I wasn't keeping her mother here. I looked at Liam clutching his bear as if afraid to lose something else. My heart ached, but I stayed composed. "I am thinking of them," I replied. "And that's why I won't let them grow up in a fake family where love is just a mask for calculation." Celia fell silent, then turned, leading the children out of the office. Emma glanced back at me. Liam gave a tiny wave, so small I almost missed it. When the door closed, I sank into my chair, hands covering my face. I wanted to run after them, to hold them, to tell them their dad would always be here. But I couldn't. Not now, when Celia was still playing her game. 3 days later, another morning brought an unexpected call. "Ashton, it's Mom and Dad." My father's voice came through, softer than I'd ever heard. "Can we come visit you?" I agreed, though my heart was heavy with doubt. They hadn't come when I was at my lowest, when I needed them most. Now, as the press began to talk of Ashton Reed's comeback, they reappeared. They arrived at my office at noon, my father in a worn shirt, my mother in a simple floral dress. They smiled, but their eyes betrayed awkwardness. "Ashton," my father began, his voice trembling, "we're sorry for what we said when you came home. You're our pride. We want to mend things, to go back to how it was." I looked at them, and once again I saw the truth. They weren't here out of love or regret. They came because I was now the chairman of Westbrook Innovations. Because the name Ashton Reed was back in the headlines, because of the reclaimed glory. I wasn't angry or resentful. I was just tired. "Mom, Dad," I said, my voice gentle but firm, "I appreciate you coming. But I don't need apologies now. I've learned that true family stays when you fall, not when you're at the top." I stood, escorting them to the door. My mother lowered her head, my father nodded silently, and they left without another word. That night, alone in my office, I opened my grandfather's notebook. I wrote, "Some people only love you when you stand at the top, but true love stays when you fall." I closed the notebook, looked out the window at Seattle's twinkling lights. I knew I didn't belong here anymore. Westbrook Innovations was stabilizing under my leadership, but I didn't want to be bound by power or prestige. I wanted to live for myself. I began transitioning leadership to a new team, young, talented people unburdened by the past I carried. Once the company was stable, I officially stepped down as chairman. For the first time in years, I felt truly at peace. Not because I was forgiven or victorious, but because I had finally forgiven myself for the years I lived to please others, for the times I let them trample my honor. I was Ashton Reed, and I had found myself again. The past, like a ghost, still found ways to creep into my life. One morning, as I was brewing coffee, my phone buzzed. A message from Elena Brooks, short but heavy. "Ashton, you should read today's news. The Westbrook empire is collapsing completely." I opened my laptop, scanning the business pages. A headline hit me like a blow. "Westbrook empire crumbles. Adam Westbrook loses everything." I read, unhurried, but each line cut like a knife, stirring old memories. After being ousted as chairman, Adam Westbrook lost all power and prestige. Subsidiaries of Westbrook Innovations were investigated for suspected financial fraud. His assets were frozen, and the lavish Queen Anne Hill mansion was auctioned off to pay debts. The press was relentless, branding him the arrogant man who dug his own empire's grave. Roman Blake, Celia's lover and my replacement as CEO, had fled the country amid fraud allegations, leaving behind a mess and headlines calling him the final destroyer of the Westbrook legacy. Celia, my ex-wife, became the center of the media storm. Articles painted her as the woman who gambled everything and lost it all. They criticized her affair with Roman, her support for her father's disastrous decisions. Her once glamorous images in dazzling dresses at events were replaced by photos of her leaving court, her face weary, eyes sunken. I read to the last line but felt no satisfaction, only a quiet sadness. She had chosen her path, and now she paid the price. 3 days later, a car pulled up outside my house. The door opened and Celia stepped out. I thought it could only be Elena Brooks. She must have told Celia where I was. Gone was her former haughtiness. Celia wore a simple sweater, her hair tied back, her unmade-up face revealing tired lines. Beside her were Emma and Liam, their eyes lighting up when they saw me. I stood, my heart racing, but I kept my composure. "Ashton," Celia said, her voice hoarse as if she'd been crying for days, "I need to talk to you." She led Emma and Liam inside, and we sat at my small kitchen table. Emma, 8, looked at me with a mix of joy and worry, while Liam clung to his mother, hugging the teddy bear I'd once bought him. I wanted to hold them, to tell them how much I missed them, but I waited for Celia to speak. She lowered her head, hands clasped tightly, then looked up at me. "I can't take care of Emma and Liam anymore," she admitted, her voice trembling. "It's not just about money, Ashton. I'm exhausted. Dad lost everything, Roman's gone, and the press won't leave me alone. I can't give the kids a stable life anymore." She paused, her eyes glistening. "I know you're angry with me, but please take care of them. They need you." I looked at her, and for a moment I saw the Celia from years ago, the woman I loved, the one I thought I'd grow old with. But then I remembered the divorce papers, her standing by Roman's side, the way she left without explanation. She wasn't here out of remorse, but because she had run out of options. I stood, knelt before Emma and Liam, and pulled them into my arms. "I'll take care of you," I said, my voice firm. "Not for you, Celia, but because they're my children, and they don't deserve to be punished in an adult's war." Emma hugged me tightly, her tears soaking my shirt. Liam hesitated, then wrapped his small arms around my neck. My heart melted, but I stayed composed, standing to face Celia. "Thank you," she whispered, attempting a smile that couldn't hide her desperation. She turned, walked to the car, and didn't look back. I stood there, holding Emma and Liam's hands, watching the car disappear down the coastal road. I didn't hate her, didn't pity her. I just wanted my children safe and loved. At first they were shy, as if afraid I'd vanish like their mother. I spent every day with them, helping Emma with math homework, reading bedtime stories to Liam. Each morning I took them to the beach, watching them play in the sand, their laughter ringing like music. I cooked simple dinners, spaghetti, toasted bread, but every meal was filled with their giggles and innocent stories. Our new life was simple but meaningful. No more pressure of prestige, no more judgmental stares. Just me, Emma, Liam, and peaceful days by the sea. I taught them how to tie their shoes, identify seabirds, and told them about their great-grandfather who taught me to stay rooted. I didn't promise them wealth, but I promised I'd always be there, always love them. Elena Brooks visited occasionally, bringing a basket of fruit or a new book for the kids. She helped watch them when I was busy, and we planned community startup projects to support young dreamers like I was 10 years ago. Elena never asked about Celia, Adam, or the past. She was just there with a gentle smile and unspoken understanding. We sat on the porch watching Emma and Liam chase each other on the sand, and I knew she was part of this new life. Not as a lover, but as a friend, a kindred spirit. One afternoon, as the sun sank into the sea in a blaze of red, I sat on the beach watching Emma build a sandcastle and Liam chase waves. I opened my grandfather's notebook and wrote, "This is true life. No need for power, no need for fame, just love and peace." I looked at my children, their laughter mingling with the waves, and realized I had found what I'd been searching for. Not recognition from others, not the glow of success, but a home, however small, where love was real and pain was in the past. Time passed gently like the waves outside. Westbrook Innovations, the company I poured 15 years of my heart into, slowly recovered under the new team I had trained before stepping down as chairman. They were young, passionate, unburdened by the calculations or arrogance of Adam and Roman Blake. I served as a remote advisor, sending emails and joining occasional calls, but my mind was no longer in Seattle. I had entrusted the company to them, confident they would continue building it with the transparency and true values I always wanted. Life with my children in Oregon was a slow, steady melody. Each morning I drove Emma and Liam to school, listening to their stories about new friends, math tests, or drawings from art class. Emma, now 9, had taken to writing, often bringing home short essays she'd read aloud to me, her eyes sparkling with pride. Liam, 6, still clung to his old teddy bear but had grown bolder, chasing waves and asking me about seashells on the beach. In the afternoons I picked them up and the three of us walked along the shore, collecting pebbles and building sandcastles. At night we sat on the wooden porch where I read to them, fairy tales, adventure novels, until they curled up beside me, falling asleep to the sound of the waves. Those days, though simple, were deeply meaningful. I no longer had to live to prove anything. No more tense meetings, no more judgmental stares from colleagues or the press. I helped Emma with her math homework, told Liam about his great-grandfather and how he taught me to stay rooted. I wanted them to grow up with those values: honesty, resilience, and unconditional love. My story didn't end with a triumphant victory or a grand act of revenge. It ended with afternoons on the beach, holding Emma and Liam's hands as they built sandcastles and laughed. It ended with peaceful nights, reading to them as they drifted off in my arms. It ended with the Reed Foundation, where Elena and I helped young dreamers dare to dream, fail, and rise again. I am Ashton Reed, and I found happiness. Not in power or fame, but in the love of my children, the peace of my soul, and the belief that even if life takes everything away, I can start again as myself.